I'm sorry you feel this way, Mom, but Sarah and I agree this is what's best for the family right now. We can't keep waiting.
I was sitting in my own living room when my son looked me in the eyes and said, "Mom, you already signed it. You just don't remember." But I did remember. I remembered the rain hitting the windows that day, loud, steady, impossible to ignore. And yet the document he held in his hand claimed it was signed on a bright, clear afternoon. My name was on that paper, my signature. My house, no longer mine. And somehow, everyone in that room had already decided I was the one who couldn't be trusted. If you've ever had someone twist your reality and make you question your own memory, I want to hear your story. Before we go further, take a second to like this video and subscribe, because stories like this deserve to be heard. And tell me, where are you watching from today and what time is it there? That night, I didn't sleep. I lay in my bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the quiet hum of a house that no longer felt like mine. Every creak in the floorboards sounded unfamiliar. Every shadow felt misplaced. It was a strange thing how quickly a place you had lived in for over 30 years could begin to feel like someone else's property. Because, apparently, it already was. The next morning, I found Vanessa in the kitchen. She was standing at the counter, her back straight, her movements precise, pouring coffee into a mug that used to be mine. The floral one Ethan had given me for Mother's Day 10 years ago. I watched her from the doorway for a moment, unsure whether to speak. "You're up early," she said, without turning around. Her tone was polite, too polite, the kind of politeness that didn't invite conversation. "I didn't sleep much," I replied. She nodded, still not looking at me. "That happens sometimes at your age." "At your age?" There it was again, that quiet dismissal wrapped in concern. I stepped into the kitchen. "Vanessa, we need to talk about yesterday." She finally turned, holding her coffee with both hands. "Lance, we already did." "No," I said, my voice trembling more than I wanted it to. "You talked." "I was told things," she sighed, setting the mug down. "You signed the documents. The house transfer is legal. Ethan showed you everything. I didn't sign anything knowingly," I said. "And I remember the day. It was raining." Her expression didn't change. "It wasn't raining," she said calmly. "You're mixing things up again." "I'm not mixing things up," I insisted. "I remember the sound. It was loud against the windows, the roof, Lance." She interrupted gently, stepping closer, lowering her voice, as if she were speaking to someone fragile. "This is exactly what we're worried about." I felt something tighten in my chest. I asked. She nodded. "Ethan and we've noticed it for a while now. Little things, forgetting conversations, misremembering dates." "That's not true," I said quickly. Too quickly. She tilted her head, studying me. "You don't remember last Thanksgiving? You accused my sister of stealing your ring." My stomach dropped. "I didn't accuse her," I said. "I asked if she had seen it." "You were very upset." She tilted her head, studying me. "You don't remember last Thanksgiving? You accused my sister of stealing your ring." My stomach dropped. "I didn't accuse her," I said. "I asked if she had seen it." "You were very upset," Vanessa replied. "You said you knew she took it." I opened my mouth, then closed it. The memory flickered unclear. I remembered losing the ring. I remembered asking questions. But the details, her tone, my tone, they blurred together. "That's not the same," I said, But even to my own ears, it sounded weak. Vanessa softened her expression. We're not trying to hurt you, Lance. We're trying to help you. Help. That word echoed in my head like something hollow. By taking my house, I asked. Her jaw tightened slightly. By making sure everything is taken care of. The paperwork just makes it easier moving forward. Moving forward to what? She hesitated just for a second. That depends, she said carefully. On what's best for you. A chill ran through me. What does that mean? Before she could answer, Ethan walked in. He looked tired. Dark circles under his eyes. His shirt wrinkled like he had slept in it. For a brief moment, I saw my little boy, the one who used to run into the kitchen asking for pancakes. But that moment passed quickly. Mom, he said, his voice cautious. You're up. I didn't sleep, I replied. He nodded, glancing at Vanessa before looking back at me. We should talk later. I have a few calls this morning. No, I said firmly. We're talking now. Something in my tone made him pause. I stepped closer to him. Ethan, look at me. He did. Did I sign those papers willingly? His eyes flickered. Yes, he said. It came too fast. Look me in the eye and say it again. He swallowed. You signed them, Mom. That's not what I asked. Vanessa stepped in. Lance, this isn't helping. I asked him a question. I snapped louder than I intended. The room went quiet. Ethan rubbed the back of his neck. You agreed to it? He said more slowly this time. We talked about it. You said you wanted to simplify things, to avoid complications later. What complications? He hesitated again. Your health, he said. My health is fine. Mom, I forget where I put my keys sometimes, I said. That's not the same as giving away my home. Vanessa crossed her arms. It's not just the keys. I turned to her. Then what is it? She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she walked over to the drawer by the refrigerator and pulled out a small folder. My folder. The one where I kept my medical records. How did you... I started. We've been helping you stay organized, she said smoothly. She opened the folder and pulled out a sheet of paper. A cognitive assessment, she said, handing it to me. I took it, my hands trembling. It was from my last doctor's visit, a routine checkup. I skimmed the page, my eyes catching on phrases that suddenly felt heavier than they should. Mild memory concerns. Further observation recommended. That doesn't mean I'm incapable, I said, my voice shaking. No one said you were incapable, Vanessa replied. But it does mean we need to be careful. Careful, I repeated. Ethan stepped closer. Mom, we're us trying to make sure you're safe. No one said you were incapable, Vanessa replied. But it does mean we need to be careful. Careful, I repeated. Ethan stepped closer. Mom, we're just trying to make sure you're safe. Safe. That word again. And I'm not safe in my own home, I asked. You are, he said quickly. Of course you are. But things can change. I looked at him, really looked at him, and for the first time I saw something I hadn't wanted to see before. Not concern, not fear, control. You've already decided, haven't you? I said quietly. No, you've already decided what's best for me. Without me. That's not fair, Vanessa said. Isn't it? I shot back. Neither of them answered. I stood there for a long moment, the paper still in my hand, my heart pounding. Then something shifted inside me. A quiet, steady realization. If I stayed here, if I let them keep talking like this, soft voices, careful words, subtle doubts, I would start to believe them. And once I believed them, it would be over. I need some air, I said. Lance Vanessa began. I'm just going outside, I interrupted. Neither of them stopped me. I walked out the front door and onto the porch, the morning air cool against my face. For a moment, I just stood there, breathing, trying to steady myself. Across the street, Mrs. Caldwell was watering her plants. She waved when she saw me. I raised my hand in return, forcing a small smile. Normal. Everything looked normal, but it wasn't. I sat down on the porch steps, my mind racing. The house, the documents, the notary. Daniel Reeves. The name echoed in my head. If there was even the smallest chance that I hadn't imagined this, if there was even one person who could confirm what really happened that day, I had to find him, because deep down, beneath the doubt, they were planting beneath the fear and confusion. I knew one thing. I was not losing my mind. Someone was trying to make me believe that I was, and I was done letting them. I didn't go back inside right away. Instead, I sat on those porch steps long enough for the sun to rise higher, long enough for Mrs. Caldwell to finish watering her plants, long enough for the quiet neighborhood to return to its usual rhythm. Cars passed. A dog barked in the distance. Somewhere a lawnmower started up. Normal life, and yet mine had shifted overnight. I looked down at my hands. They didn't look like the hands of someone confused. They were steady, familiar. The same hands that had balanced budgets, signed school district contracts, raised a son, and held a home together for decades. Hands that knew exactly what they had signed and what they hadn't. I stood up slowly and went back inside. Vanessa was gone from the kitchen. Ethan, too. The house was quiet, but not peaceful. It felt watched. Like everything I did now had weight behind it, meaning behind it, judgment behind it. I walked straight to the hallway cabinet where I kept my documents. Or where I used to. The drawer was slightly open. I pulled it out fully and felt my stomach tighten. Empty. Every file, every folder. Gone. I stood there for a long moment, staring into the drawer, as if the papers might magically reappear if I waited long enough. Then I heard a voice behind me. We moved those. I turned. Vanessa stood at the end of the hallway, her arms crossed. Why, I asked, already knowing I wouldn't like the answer. For safekeeping, she said. You've been misplacing things. I don't misplace legal documents, I replied sharply. She walked closer, her expression calm but firm. Lance, we're just trying to prevent problems before they happen. You mean before I ask questions? Her lips pressed into a thin line. That's not fair. I let out a short, humorless laugh. You keep saying that, because it's true. No, I said, shaking my head. What's not fair is waking up in a house I've owned for 30 years and being told it doesn't belong to me anymore. She didn't respond. Instead, she walked past me into the kitchen, ending the conversation without another word. That was her way. Control without confrontation. I stood there a moment longer, then turned and walked to the living room. The folder Ethan had shown me yesterday, the one with the property documents, was still on the coffee table. At least they hadn't hidden that. Not yet. I sat down and opened it again, slower this time. The first page was the deed transfer. My name. My signature. Ethan's name listed as the new owner. I stared at the signature for a long time. It looked like mine. The curve of the L, the way I looped the W in Whitaker. Even the slight tilt at the end, something I had never quite corrected over the years. It was mine, And yet something felt off. Not in the shape, not in the ink, in the feeling. I had signed thousands of documents in my life. Contracts, forms, agreements, and every single time there had been a moment, a pause, a decision, a sense of awareness. This felt empty, like a photograph of a moment I couldn't remember living. I flipped to the next page. Notary acknowledgement. There it was again. Daniel Reeves. The name settled heavier this time. I leaned back in my chair, closing my eyes, trying to pull the memory forward. An office. A desk. Papers laid out neatly. A man sitting across from me. Was it him? I couldn't see his face clearly. But I remembered something else. A voice. Not his. Ethan's. Close to my ear. Low. Urgent. Just sign it, Mom. It's easier this way. My eyes snapped open. My heart started to race. That wasn't a vague feeling. That was a memory. Small. Fragmented. But real. I leaned forward again, gripping the edge of the table. If Ethan had been there, if he had been guiding the conversation, answering questions, then what exactly had happened in that room? I flipped through the rest of the documents. Dates, signatures, official stamps. Everything looked legitimate. Too legitimate, which only made the unease worse. Because if something had gone wrong, it hadn't been sloppy. It had been planned. I closed the folder slowly. Looking at those again won't change anything. Ethan's voice. I looked up. He was standing in the doorway now, his expression unreadable. Maybe not, I said, but it might help me understand. He walked in, loosening his tie. There's nothing to understand. You signed them. That's it. No, I said quietly. That's not it. He sighed, running a hand through his hair. Mom, please don't do this again. Do what go in circles. Question everything. It's exhausting. For you? I asked. For everyone, he corrected. I stood up, holding the folder. Were you there? I asked. He froze for a split second. Where? When I signed these. He looked away briefly, then back at me. Of course I was. I drove you there. My pulse quickened. And did you speak for me? What does that even mean? Did you answer questions for me? Did you tell them what I wanted instead of letting me speak? His jaw tightened. No. Too fast again. You're lying, I said softly. His eyes flashed. I'm not lying. Then look at me and say it again. He didn't. Instead, he walked past me, picking up his keys from the table. I have to go to work, he said. Ethan. He stopped, his back still turned to me. I'm going to find him. I said. Find who? The notary. Daniel Reeves. The silence that followed was different this time. He didn't move, didn't speak, didn't even breathe, it seemed. Slowly he turned around. You don't need to do that, he said. I think I do. His expression hardened. Mom, this is getting out of hand. No, I said. What's getting out of hand is me being treated like I don't have a say in my own life. You do have a say, then I'm using it. We stood there facing each other. Something had shifted, not just in me, in him. For the first time, I saw something crack through the calm surface he had been maintaining. Not concern, not frustration, fear. Why does it matter so much? I asked quietly. Because it's done, he snapped. It's finished. There's no reason to dig it up again. There is if it wasn't right. It was right, he insisted. You won't even let me check, because there's nothing to check. His voice echoed through the room. Vanessa appeared in the hallway, drawn by the noise. What's going on? She asked. Your husband doesn't want me to talk to the man who notarized my signature, I said. Vanessa's eyes flicked to Ethan, then back to me. Lance, she said carefully. That's not necessary. Why not? Because it won't change anything. You don't know that. Yes, I do, she said firmly. The certainty in her voice sent a chill through me. Not belief. Certainty. Like she already knew what would happen if I went. Like she was afraid of it. I looked between them. Ethan, Vanessa, both standing there. Both telling me to stop. Both acting like the truth was something dangerous. And in that moment, I knew. I'm going, I said. Ethan shook his head. Mom, I'm going, I repeated louder this time. Neither of them tried to stop me. But as I walked past them, I could feel it. That tension, that unspoken panic, and it only confirmed what I had started to believe. Whatever happened that day, whatever was written in those documents, someone in this house already knew the truth, and they were terrified I was about to find it. I didn't tell Ethan or Vanessa where I was going, not because I thought they would physically stop me, but because I could already feel the weight of their doubt pressing in on me. Every question I asked seemed to become proof in their eyes that I wasn't thinking clearly. And the more they repeated it, the more dangerous it became. Because doubt once planted doesn't stay small. It grows. I grabbed my purse, slipped the folder inside, and headed out the front door without another word. The drive felt longer than it should have. I had lived in this town for over 30 years. I knew these streets better than I knew most people. But that morning, everything felt slightly off, like I was seeing it through someone else's memory. The grocery store where I used to run into neighbors. The small park where Ethan learned to ride his bike. The church on the corner where I sat through countless Sunday mornings, believing family meant something unbreakable. I gripped the steering wheel tighter. Maybe that was my mistake, believing something couldn't be broken. I pulled into a small parking lot near downtown and sat there for a moment, staring at the building in front of me. Reeves Notary Services. Simple, unremarkable. A place you would walk into for routine paperwork and walk out of without a second thought, unless something had gone very wrong. I stepped out of the car and walked toward the entrance, my heart beating harder with every step. The bell above the door chimed softly as I pushed it open. Inside the office was quiet. A desk near the window, filing cabinets along the wall. A faint smell of paper and coffee lingering in the air. Behind the desk sat a man in his late 50s, maybe early 60s, neatly dressed, glasses low on his nose. He looked up as I entered. "Good morning," he said. His voice was calm, professional. I hesitated for a fraction of a second before speaking. "Are you Daniel Reeves?" "I am," he replied, standing up slightly as if to greet me properly. "How can I help you?" For a moment, I just looked at him, studied his face, tried to match it with the blurred memory in my mind. Something about his posture felt familiar. The way he held himself. The way his eyes focused attentive but cautious. "I think I was here recently," I said, slowly. He tilted his head slightly. "All right." I reached into my purse and pulled out the folder, placing it on his desk. "These documents were notarized here," I said, "under your name." He glanced down, adjusting his glasses as he opened the folder. His eyes moved quickly across the page. And then something changed. It was subtle, but I saw it. Recognition. He looked back up at me. Lance Whitaker, he said. My breath caught. You remember me? He didn't answer right away. Instead, he closed the folder gently and rested his hands on top of it as if weighing something carefully in his mind. Yes, he said finally. Not hesitation, not uncertainty, certainty. I remember you, he repeated. A strange mix of relief and fear washed over me. Then you remember that I didn't want to sign those papers, I said quickly. His expression shifted. Not into agreement, not into denial, into something more complicated. I remember that it was an unusual appointment, he said. My heart started pounding again. What does that mean? He gestured toward the chair across from him. Please sit. I did. He remained standing for a moment longer before sitting back down himself, folding his hands together. I handle a lot of documents, he began. Most of them are straightforward. People come in, they know what they're signing, they ask a few questions, and that's it. He paused. But yours wasn't like that. I leaned forward slightly. How is it different? He studied me again, as if trying to decide how much to say. You weren't alone, he said. I swallowed. I know. I said. My son was there. He nodded slowly. Yes. Ethan Whitaker. Hearing his name in that room made something inside me tighten. What happened? I asked. Daniel exhaled quietly, choosing his words carefully. From the moment you walked in, something felt off. In what way? You were quiet, he said. Very quiet. That's not unusual on its own, but what? But your son did most of the talking. A cold sensation spread through my chest. What do you mean? I mean, Daniel said, his tone steady, that when I asked you questions, standard questions required for the process, he often answered before you could. My hands clenched together in my lap. What kind of questions? Simple things, he replied. Do you understand the document? Are you signing willingly? Do you have any questions? And I didn't answer. You did, he said, but not immediately. There were pauses. He leaned back slightly. And during those pauses, your son would step in. I closed my eyes for a second. That voice in my memory. Just sign it, Mom. Did I say I wanted to do it? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Daniel hesitated. You didn't object, he said carefully. That's not the same thing. No, he admitted. It isn't. The room felt smaller suddenly, tighter. Did I look confused? I asked. He frowned slightly. Not confused. Then what? He took a moment before answering. Uncomfortable, he said. That word hit harder than I expected, like you weren't fully present in the decision. I opened my eyes again, looking directly at him. Then why did you go through with it? The question came out sharper than I intended. He didn't seem offended, just tired. Because there was no clear violation, he said. Legally speaking, you answered the required questions. You signed the document. There was no overt coercion I could prove in that moment. But you suspected something. Yes, he said quietly. And you still let it happen. His gaze didn't waver. I follow the law, Ms. Whitaker, he said. Not instincts. The truth of that settled heavily between us. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then I leaned forward again. Do you remember anything else? I asked. His brow furrowed slightly, as if replaying the moment in his mind. There was something, he said slowly. My breath caught. What? He tapped his fingers lightly against the desk. You kept looking toward the door, he said. Toward the door? He nodded. as if you were expecting someone, or hoping someone would walk in. A strange feeling stirred in my chest. Fear. Not the loud kind, the quiet, creeping kind that settles into your bones. I don't remember that, I whispered. He studied me for a moment longer. Memory is complicated, he said. No, I said, shaking my head. This isn't about memory. He didn't respond. This is about something that happened. I continued. Something real. I placed my hand on the folder. And I need to prove it. Daniel glanced at the documents again, then back at me. There may be something else, he said. My heart skipped. What? He hesitated, then said quietly, there were security cameras in the office that day. Everything inside me went still. Were they recording? I asked. Yes. A surge of hope rushed through me so suddenly it almost made me dizzy. Then you have footage, I said. You have proof. He didn't answer immediately. And that silence was enough to tell me something was wrong. What is it? I asked, my voice tightening. Daniel looked at me carefully. The footage, he said slowly, is no longer in our system. The hope collapsed just as quickly as it had come. What do you mean? It was deleted. My stomach dropped. Deleted, I repeated. Yes. By who? He shook his head. I don't know. I stared at him, my mind racing. Deleted, not lost, not corrupted. Deleted. And suddenly everything became clear in a way that was far more terrifying than confusion. This hadn't been a mistake. This hadn't been a misunderstanding. This had been controlled, planned, erased. I stood up slowly, my legs feeling unsteady beneath me. Thank you, I said, though my voice barely sounded like my own. Daniel barely sounded like my own. Daniel nodded, but his eyes lingered on me with something like concern. Ms. Whitaker, he said, if you believe something improper occurred, you should speak to an attorney. I gave a small, hollow laugh. I already planned to. D.E. But his eyes lingered on me with something like concern. Ms. Whitaker, he said, if you believe something improper occurred, you should speak to an attorney. I gave a small, hollow laugh. I already planned to. I picked up the folder and turned toward the door. But just before I reached it, I stopped. One thought cutting through everything else. If the footage had been deleted, then someone had made sure it couldn't be seen. And people only erase things when the truth is too dangerous to exist. I didn't drive straight home after leaving Daniel Reeves's office. I couldn't. The idea of walking back into that house, of seeing Ethan and Vanessa standing there with their calm, controlled expressions, felt unbearable. Not after what I had just heard. Not after knowing with a clarity that settled deep into my bones that something had gone very wrong and they had been part of it. Instead, I drove across town. To Helen. Her house sat on a quiet street lined with old oak trees, the kind that cast long shadows even in the middle of the day. I had been there countless times over the years, birthday dinners, late-night conversations, cups of tea that stretched into hours. It was the one place that still felt safe. I parked in her driveway and sat there for a moment, gripping the steering wheel. This was the point where things changed. Up until now, I had been questioning, doubting, trying to piece together fragments of memory. But walking through Helen's door meant something different. It meant I was ready to fight. I stepped out of the car and walked up to the front door, knocking twice before I could second-guess myself. It didn't take long. Helen opened the door, her silver hair pulled back neatly, her sharp eyes scanning my face before I even spoke. Lance, she said, her voice steady but concerned. What happened? I exhaled slowly. Everything I said. She stepped aside immediately. Come in. I followed her inside, the familiar scent of chamomile tea and old books wrapping around me like a blanket. She led me into the living room, where I sat down on the edge of the couch, still holding the folder in my hands. Helen didn't sit right away. She watched me, studied me, waiting. I swallowed hard. I went to see the notary, I said. Her eyebrows lifted slightly. Already I couldn't wait. Good, she said simply. What did he say? I opened the folder and placed it on the coffee table, my fingers lingering on the edge for a moment before I pulled them away. He remembered me, I said. Helen sat down across from me, leaning forward slightly. That's important. He said it wasn't a normal appointment. Her eyes sharpened. In what way? I took a breath and began to tell her everything. About Ethan being there, about him answering questions, about the pauses, about the way Daniel described me quiet, uncomfortable, not fully present. Helen didn't interrupt. Not once. She just listened, her expression growing more serious with every word. And the cameras, she asked when I finished. My chest tightened. They were recording, I said, but the footage is gone. Her jaw set immediately. Gone how? Deleted. The word hung between us. Helen leaned back slightly, her fingers tapping once against her knee. That's not an accident, she said. I know. Do you know who has access to the system? Daniel's words echoed in my mind. I didn't ask, I admitted. Helen nodded slowly. We'll find out. A flicker of something, relief maybe, moved through me. We, I repeated. She looked at me, her gaze steady and unwavering. You didn't come here just to tell me what happened, she said. You came here because you already know something is wrong. I nodded. And because you don't trust them, she added. Yes. Then you're going to need someone who understands how to prove it. My throat tightened. I don't even know where to start, I said. Helen leaned forward again, her voice calm but firm. You start by assuming this wasn't a mistake. I blinked. What you assume it was intentional, she said. Because everything you've told me points in that direction. I felt a chill run through me. Ethan wouldn't, I began, but the words died before I could finish them. Because I didn't know that anymore. Helen watched the shift in my expression. You're still holding on to the version of him you raised, she said gently. But that's not the man you're dealing with right now. I looked down at my hands. I don't understand how it got this far, I whispered. You trusted him, she said simply. The truth of that hurt more than anything else. I let out a shaky breath. What do we do? Helen didn't hesitate. We build a case. The words felt heavy, final. Against my own son, I asked. Against whoever committed fraud, she corrected. If that includes your son, then yes. I closed my eyes for a moment. This was real. This wasn't a misunderstanding that could be smoothed over with a conversation. This was something else. Something legal. Something that would tear through whatever was left of my family. Okay, I said finally. Helen nodded once, as if she had been waiting for that. Good, she said. Then we start with what we have. She reached for the folder and opened it, scanning the documents quickly. The signature looks consistent, she said, But that doesn't mean it wasn't obtained under pressure. He said I didn't object, I said. That doesn't matter, she replied. Consent isn't just about not objecting. It's about understanding and willingness. I nodded slowly. And if he answered for you, she continued, that complicates things further. She flipped to the notary page. Daniel Reeves, she read. Did he seem willing to testify? I don't know, I admitted. He was careful. He has to be, she said. But if he remembers the details, that's something we can use? Hope flickered again. And the footage, I asked. Helen's expression hardened slightly. Deleted footage can sometimes be recovered, she said, even if it's been removed from the system. Sometimes, she repeated, and even if it can't, the fact that it was deleted is evidence in itself. I hadn't thought of that. It is? Yes, she said, because it suggests someone didn't want it seen. I felt something shift inside me. Not fear, not doubt. Something stronger. Determination. Helen closed the folder and looked at me. Lance, I need you to be honest with me, she said. I am. No, she said gently. I need you to be honest with yourself. I swallowed. About what? About how far you're willing to go. The question settled heavily between us. If we do this, she continued, it won't be quiet, it won't be easy, and it won't end without consequences. I thought of Ethan, of the little boy who used to run into my arms, of the man who had stood in my living room and told me I couldn't trust my own mind. I don't have a choice, I said. Helen held my gaze. You always have a choice. I shook my head slowly. Not this time. Silence filled the room. Then Helen nodded. All right, she said. Then we move forward. She stood up, walking toward her desk in the corner of the room. I'll start by requesting records from the notary office, she said. Logs access history, anything that shows who handled that footage. And I'll talk to Daniel again, I added. Good, she said. And Lance? I looked up. Don't go back there alone if you can avoid it, she said. To the house? She nodded. They're already trying to control the narrative, she said. The more isolated you are, the easier that becomes. I thought about the empty drawer, the missing documents, the way Vanessa had spoken to me. I understand, I said. Helen gave me a small, reassuring smile. You're not alone in this, she said. For the first time since this had started, I believed that. But as I sat there watching her begin to write notes to build something structured out of the chaos I had been living in, one thought lingered. If Ethan had gone this far, if he had controlled the appointment, if someone had deleted that footage, then this wasn't just about a house. This was about something bigger. Something he hadn't told me. And whatever it was, I had a feeling I was only just beginning to see it. Helen didn't waste time. By the next morning, she already had a list, names, numbers requests, filed, and a legal pad filled with notes in her sharp, precise handwriting. Watching her work was like watching someone build a structure out of chaos, brick by brick, until something solid began to take shape. I sat across from her at the dining table, a cup of tea growing cold in my hands. I've requested access logs from Rivas' office, she said without looking up. If anyone tampered with the system, there's a chance it left a trace. And if it didn't? I asked. She paused finally, lifting her eyes to meet mine. Then we look for other ways to prove coercion. The word still felt strange. Coercion. It sounded so official, so distant from the reality I had lived in, that quiet pressure, those subtle interruptions, that feeling of being guided without realizing it. But that's what it was. Daniel said he might testify, I said. That's good, Helen replied. But we need more than memory. We need something concrete. I nodded, even though a part of me already feared what that meant. Which brings us to the footage, she added. I tightened my grip on the cup. Or what's left of it, I said. Helen gave a small nod. Exactly. She stood up, walking toward her desk again. There's one more person we need to talk to, she said. I looked up. Who? A former employee. My heart skipped. At the notary office? Yes, she said. Carla Mendez. The name felt unfamiliar. She worked there until recently, Helen continued. Left about 2 months ago. Before or after the signing? After. That mattered. Do you think she knows something? I asked. I think, Helen said carefully, that people who leave suddenly often take something with them, even if it's just information. A quiet tension settled in my chest. And you've already contacted her? I left a message, Helen said. She hasn't responded yet. I nodded slowly, trying to keep my thoughts from spiraling. Everything felt like it was balancing on small, uncertain pieces. A memory, a deleted file, a former employee who might or might not help. But it was still more than I had yesterday, and that mattered. Helen's phone buzzed on the desk. She glanced at it, her expression sharpening slightly. That might be her, she said. My breath caught as she picked up the phone. Hello, she answered. I watched her closely, trying to read her face as she listened. Yes, this is Helen Brooks, she said. Thank you for calling back. A pause. Yes, I'm here with Lance Whitaker. My pulse quickened. Another pause. Then Helen's eyes shifted toward me, something new in them. Interest. Yes, this is Helen Brooks, she said. Thank you for calling back. A pause. Yes, I'm here with Lance Whitaker. My pulse quickened. Another pause. Then Helen's eyes shifted toward me, something new in them. Interest. Yes, she said slowly. We'd like to speak with you. Another silence. Then, that's fine, Helen said. We can come to you. She listened a moment longer, then nodded. All right, we'll be there in an hour. She ended the call and looked at me. Well, I asked. That was Carla Mendez, she said. My heart started pounding. And she's willing to talk. Relief rushed through me so suddenly it almost made me dizzy. What did she say? Not much over the phone, Helen replied. But she sounded cautious. Cautious how? Like someone who knows more than they're comfortable saying out loud. That didn't surprise me. Where is she? I asked. Small apartment complex on the east side of town, Helen said. Not far from here. I stood up immediately. Let's go. Helen studied me for a moment. Are you sure you're ready for this? She asked. I didn't hesitate. Yes, because whatever Carla knew, it might be the missing piece. The drive was quiet, not because there was nothing to say, but because everything felt too important to say lightly. The kind of silence that holds tension instead of comfort. I stared out the window as we crossed into a different part of town. Smaller buildings, older streets, the kind of place where people didn't ask too many questions. Helen pulled into a parking lot and turned off the engine. That's her building, she said, nodding toward a 2-story structure with peeling paint and narrow balconies. I swallowed. This is it. We stepped out of the car and walked toward the entrance. The hallway smelled faintly of detergent and something older, something worn. Apartment 2. B. Helen knocked. For a moment, Nothing happened. Then footsteps. The door opened just a crack before stopping a chain still latched. A woman in her early 30s looked out at us. Dark hair, pulled back, tired eyes, a cautious expression. Carla Helen asked. Yes, I'm Helen Brooks. We spoke on the phone. Carla's gaze shifted to me. And you're Lance Whitaker? She said. It wasn't a question. Yes, I replied. She hesitated for a moment longer, then closed the door. The sound of the chain sliding free echoed louder than it should have. When she opened it again, she stepped aside. Come in, she said. Her apartment was small, but neat. A couch against the wall. A kitchen barely separated from the living space. Papers stacked on the table like she had been sorting through something. She didn't offer us seats right away. Instead, she crossed her arms slightly, watching us. I don't have a lot of time, she said. That's fine, Helen replied calmly. We just need to ask you a few questions. Carla nodded once. About the notary office, I said. Her expression shifted almost instantly. Tighter, more guarded, I figured she said. You were ked there when I signed those documents about the notary office, I said. Her expression shifted almost instantly. Tighter, more guarded. I figured, she said. You worked there when I signed those documents. I continued. Yes. Do you remember that day? She didn't answer right away. Instead, she walked over to the table and picked up a pen, turning it slowly between her fingers. I remember a lot of days, she said carefully. This one wasn't normal, I said. Her hand stopped moving. No denial, no confusion, just stillness. That depends on what you think normal is, she replied. Helen stepped in gently. Carla, we're not here to cause trouble for you, she said. But something happened that day, and we believe you might have seen it. Carla let out a quiet breath. I saw a lot of things working there, she said. Doesn't mean I was supposed to. My pulse quickened. What did you see? I asked. She looked at me, really looked at me this time, and something in her expression softened. You looked scared, she said. The words hit me like a shock. I don't remember that, I whispered. You were, she said. You kept glancing at your son like you were waiting for him to tell you what to do. My chest tightened painfully. That's not consent, Helen said quietly. Carla shook her head slightly. No, she agreed. It's not. Then why didn't anyone stop it? I asked. Her eyes flicked toward the door as if even now she was worried about who might hear. Because your son wasn't just some random guy walking in, she said. A chill ran through me. What does that mean? Carla hesitated, then said very carefully. He had been there before. The room went completely still. Before I repeated, she nodded slowly. A few times. My mind raced. For what? She swallowed. Setting things up. My heart started pounding louder. What things? Carla looked at Helen, then back at me. And when she spoke again, her voice was lower. Making sure everything would go smoothly when you came in. The words landed like a weight. Planned. Prepared. Controlled. Everything Daniel had said. Everything I had felt. It all aligned. This wasn't something that had happened in a single moment. This had been built. Step by step. And my son had been at the center of it. The room felt smaller after Carla said that, like the walls had quietly shifted inward, closing in around the truth she had just dropped between us. He had been there before, setting things up. I stared at her, trying to process it, but my mind struggled to keep up with the implications. How many times, I asked? Carla hesitated, her fingers tightening slightly around the pen she was still holding. I don't know exactly, she said, but more than once. I remember him because he stood out. In what way? Helen asked. Carla let out a breath. Carla. He was very controlled, she said. Most people who come into a place like that are a little nervous. It's legal paperwork, signatures, decisions that matter. But him, she shook her head slightly. He wasn't nervous at all. A cold feeling spread through me. He knew what he was doing, I said quietly. Carla nodded. Yes. The word landed heavily. Helen leaned forward slightly. Did he speak to Daniel before the appointment, she asked? Carla glanced toward the door again before answering. Yes. My heart started pounding faster. About what I wasn't part of the conversation, Carla said quickly, but I saw them talking. More than once, in private. Private, prepared, controlled. Every piece was starting to fit together in a way that made my stomach turn. What about the footage? Helen asked. Carla's expression shifted again. More guarded. I knew you were going to ask that, she said. Then you already know why it matters. Helen replied calmly. Carla nodded slowly. The system doesn't just delete files on its own, she said. I figured that much, I said. It requires access, she continued. Admin access. And who had that? Helen asked. Carla hesitated. Daniel, she said first. And she stopped. And who? I pressed. Her eyes flicked to mine. There was a temporary login created, she said. My chest tightened. For who? She swallowed. For a consultant. The word felt wrong the moment she said it. What kind of consultant? Helen asked. Carla gave a small, humorless laugh. That's the thing, she said. No one ever really explained that. My pulse raced. But the login existed, yes, and it was used. Carla nodded. After hours, she said. A few days after your appointment. The air seemed to disappear from the room. After hours, I repeated. Yes. Who was there? I asked. I don't know, she said. I wasn't working that night. But the system logs showed access. And the next day, she trailed off. And the next day, what Helen asked. Carla met her gaze. The footage from that week was gone. My hands went cold. Not just my appointment, the whole week. That's not a coincidence, Helen said firmly. No, Carla agreed. Silence fell over the room again. But this time, it wasn't just tension. It was confirmation. Something had been erased. Deliberately, carefully, and someone had made sure there would be no easy way to recover it. Do you think Ethan had access to that login? I asked. Carla didn't answer right away. Instead, she looked at me, really looked at me like she was deciding how much truth I could handle. I don't know for certain, she said slowly. But I saw him in the office late one evening, she admitted. My heart stopped for a beat. After hours, she nodded. He wasn't supposed to be there, she said, but he had a key. A key. I felt something inside me crack. How would he get a key? I whispered. Carla shook her head. I don't know, she said, but he let himself in like he belonged there. Helen leaned back slightly, her expression tightening. That's a problem, she said. Yes, Carla replied quietly. It is. I pressed my hand against my chest, trying to steady my breathing. This wasn't just manipulation anymore. This wasn't just pressure in a room's subtle control over a conversation. This was access, planning, execution. Ethan hadn't just been pre-execution. Ethan hadn't just been pre-ANT. He had been involved. Deeply. Why didn't you report it? I asked Carla. The question came out sharper than I intended, but I couldn't stop it. She flinched slightly. Because I didn't have proof in T. He had been involved, deeply. Why didn't you report it? I asked Carla. The question came out sharper than I intended, but I couldn't stop it. She flinched slightly. Because I didn't have proof, she said, and because I needed that job. The honesty in her voice took the edge off my anger. I'm sorry, I said, quietly. She nodded once. I didn't think it would matter. She continued. Not until I heard your name again. My head lifted. What do you mean? She hesitated. After I left the office, I heard people talking, she said. About what? About a case, she replied. A dispute. Something about property. My chest tightened. My house, I said. She nodded slowly, and your son's name came up again, she added. A strange, sinking feeling settled in my stomach. What exactly did you hear? Helen asked. Carla's fingers tightened around the pen again. That he had been preparing for it, she said. Preparing how? I asked. Making sure everything was in place before it became official, she said. The words echoed what she had already told us, but now they felt heavier, more deliberate, more dangerous. I stared at the floor for a moment, my thoughts racing, preparing, setting things up, making sure everything went smoothly, not for me, for him. Why, I whispered. Neither of them answered right away, because the truth was, we didn't know yet, not fully, but something about it felt bigger than just a house. Helen leaned forward again. Carla, she said, her voice calm but firm. Would you be willing to provide a statement? Carla's eyes widened slightly. A statement. Yes, Helen said. About what you saw. The access logs, the after-hours entry, the deleted footage. Carla looked down at her hands. That could get me involved, she said quietly. You already are, Helen replied. Silence. Heavy. Unavoidable. Carla exhaled slowly. I need time to think, she said. Helen nodded. That's fair. I looked at her, my voice softer now. You might be the only person who can help me prove this, I said. Her eyes lifted to meet mine, and for a moment I saw something there. Not just caution, not just fear, but something else. Understanding. I'll think about it, she repeated. It wasn't a yes, but it wasn't a no. And right now, that was enough. The drive back felt different, not lighter, not easier, but clearer. Helen kept her eyes on the road, her hands steady on the wheel. Well, she said, after a long silence that changes things. Yes, I replied quietly. She confirmed access. Helen continued. Pre-planning, possible tampering with evidence. And Ethan, I said. Helen didn't respond immediately. Ethan is involved, she said carefully. The words landed solid and undeniable. I stared out the window, watching the familiar streets pass by again. But they didn't feel familiar anymore. Nothing did. Why would he do this? I asked. Helen glanced at me briefly. That's the question we need to answer next. I nodded slowly, because this wasn't just about proving what happened. It was about understanding why. And something deep inside me told me, when I found that answer, it was going to hurt even more than everything that had come before. I didn't go back to the house that night. Helen insisted on it, and for once, I didn't argue. You need distance, she said as she made up the guest room for me. Not just physically, mentally. I sat on the edge of the bed, watching her smooth out the blanket like she had done 100 times before. For guests, for friends, for people who needed somewhere to land when life became too heavy. I never thought I'd need this, I said quietly. Helen didn't look at me right away. No one ever does, she replied. She turned her eyes, softening just slightly. But needing help doesn't mean you're weak, Lance. It means you're still standing. I nodded, even though the words didn't quite settle in yet, because standing didn't feel strong. It felt fragile, like one more push could knock everything over. I didn't sleep much that night either, but this time, it wasn't confusion keeping me awake. It was clarity. Every piece of information replayed in my mind over and over again. Ethan at the office before the appointment, private conversations, a key to the building, a temporary login, deleted footage. This wasn't just manipulation anymore. It was coordination. And the more I thought about it, the more one question refused to let go. Why? Why go through all of this just for a house? Unless it wasn't just a house. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of Helen already on the phone. I stepped quietly into the hallway, pausing when I heard her voice. Yes, I understand, she was saying. But I need the full access logs, not summaries. Everything. A pause. No, this isn't optional, she added, her tone sharpening. This is a legal request. I leaned against the wall, listening. Then I suggest you reconsider your position, she said firmly, because if we have to escalate this, it won't stay private. Another pause, then she sighed. Thank you, she said softer now. I'll expect it by the end of the day. She ended the call and turned, noticing me standing there. You're up, she said. Hard to sleep, I replied. She nodded. That won't change for a while. I stepped into the kitchen, pouring myself a cup of coffee. Who was that, I asked. Reeves's office, she said. They're reluctant to hand over the logs. Why? Because they know something's wrong, she said simply. And they don't want to be responsible for it. That made sense. No one wants to admit their system was used for something illegal. Will they give them to you, I asked. They will, she said. One way or another. I sat down at the table, wrapping my hands around the warm mug. And Carla, I asked. Helen studied me for a moment. She hasn't committed yet, she said. But she's thinking about it. That's something, I said. Yes, Helen agreed. But we can't rely on something. We need evidence. I nodded slowly. Then we find more. Helen gave a small, approving nod. That's exactly what we're going to do. She walked over to the table and placed a folder in front of me. What's this, I asked. Public records, she said. Property history. Transactions. Anything tied to your house. I opened it carefully. Page after page of documents. Dates, names, transfers. At first, it looked straightforward. Until it didn't. What is this? I said, pointing to a section. Helen leaned over. A lien, she said. My heart skipped. A lien, she nodded. Placed about 6 months ago. I frowned. I never approved that. I know, she said. I scanned the document again. A financial institution I didn't recognize. A loan tied to the property. And then, my breath caught. Ethan's name. What is this? I whispered. Helen's expression hardened. This, she said, is why he needed control of the house. The room went completely still. He took out a loan, I asked. Using your property as collateral, she confirmed. My chest tightened painfully. But he couldn't do that without ownership, I said. Exactly. The realization hit me all at once. This wasn't about inheritance. This wasn't about simplifying things. This was about money. A large amount of it. And if the house wasn't legally his, I said slowly, the loan would be fraudulent, Helen finished. My hands started to shake. He needed my signature, I whispered. Yes. And when he couldn't get it, he made sure it looked like he did. The room felt like it was spinning slightly. Everything, every strange detail, every inconsistency, every moment of pressure, it all connected. Ethan hadn't just taken advantage of me. He had needed me, needed my name, needed my house. And when I didn't give it to him, he created a way to take it anyway. Why didn't I know about the loan? I asked. Because it was likely processed under his control, Helen said. Once he had the transfer documents, he could move quickly. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the ceiling. My son. My own son. I don't understand how he got here, I said. Helen didn't answer right away. People don't change overnight, she said eventually. They just hide parts of themselves until they can't anymore. I closed my eyes. All those years, all those memories. Had I missed something, or had I just chosen not to see it? And Vanessa, I asked. Helen's voice was quiet but certain. She knew. I opened my eyes again. Of course she did. The way she spoke, the way she controlled conversations, the way she dismissed my doubts. This wasn't new to her. She had been part of it from the beginning. What happens now? I asked. Helen leaned forward, her expression focused. Now we prove it, she said. How? She tapped the folder. We connect the loan to the transfer, she said. We show intent. We show premeditation. And the footage. If we can recover it, that strengthens everything, she said. But even without it, we're building a case. I nodded slowly, because for the first time since this started, this wasn't just about defending myself. It was about exposing something bigger, something deliberate. I stood up, walking to the window. The morning light spilled across the street outside, everything looking calm, ordinary, untouched. But I knew better now. Behind that calm, there were decisions, secrets, choices people thought they could bury. I turned back to Helen. I want to see him, I said. Her eyebrows lifted slightly. Ethan, yes. Why? I took a breath. Because I want to hear what he says when he knows that I know. Helen studied me for a long moment. That's risky, she said. I know, and you need to be careful. I will. She nodded slowly. Then we prepare. First, she said, no surprises, no emotional reactions. You go in with facts. I nodded, because this time I wasn't going to walk into a room unprepared. This time I was going to walk in knowing exactly what had been taken from me and exactly what I was going to take back. By the time we got back to Helen's house, I could feel it in my chest, that pressure building, not panic, not confusion, something sharper, something that felt like the edge of truth getting closer. I don't want to wait, I said as soon as we stepped inside. Helen closed the door behind us, calm as ever. "We're not waiting," she replied. "We're preparing." "I want to confront him," I said. "I know." "No," I insisted, turning to face her. "Not later. Not after paperwork and calls and logs. I want to see what he says when he realizes I know about the loan." Helen studied me carefully. "Emotionally, I understand that," she said. "Legally, that's risky." "Why?" "Because if you confront him too early," she said, "you give him time to adjust his story." I stopped. That thought hadn't occurred to me. "He's already lying," I said. "Yes," Helen replied. "But right now, his lies are built on the assumption that you're confused." I felt something tighten in my chest. "And if he knows, I'm not held change tactics," she said simply. Silence, because she was right. Ethan wasn't careless. Everything we had seen so far proved that. He planned, he prepared, he erased. And if I walked in too soon, I might be giving him exactly what he needed. "So what do we do?" I asked. Helen walked over to her desk, flipping through her notes. "We let him think he's still in control," she said. That didn't sit well. "I don't like that." "You don't have to like it," she replied. "You just have to use it." I exhaled slowly, forcing myself to think instead of react. "All right," I said. "Then what's next?" Helen turned back to me. "We confirm the timeline." "Timeline? Yes," she said. "When he first visited the notary office. When the loan was initiated. When the footage was deleted." I nodded. "Because if those things line up, then we prove intent." She finished. That word again. Intent. Not an accident, not confusion, a plan. I walked over to the table, sitting down again. "And Carla?" I asked. "She's still a variable," Helen said. "But even without her, we're building something solid." "What if she decides not to help?" Helen met my gaze. "Then we make sure we don't need her." I let that settle, because that was the difference between hope and strategy. Hope depended on people. Strategy didn't. The call came later that afternoon. Helen answered it on speaker this time. "Brooks," she said. A male voice responded, "This is Daniel Reeves." My heart jumped. "Mr. Reeves," Helen said. "Thank you for calling back." "I reviewed the request," he said, "and I found something." Every muscle in my body tensed. "What did you find?" Helen asked. "A discrepancy in the access logs," he said. I leaned forward. "Go on." "There was a login used outside of normal hours," he continued. "The same one Carla mentioned." "Can you trace it?" Helen asked. There was a pause. "Not directly," he said. "It's listed under a temporary credential." "That's not helpful," I muttered under my breath. Helen raised a hand slightly, signaling me to stay quiet. But Daniel continued. "There's something else." My breath caught. The login was activated using a specific terminal in the office. Helen's eyes sharpened. "Which one?" "The front desk system," he said. "Carla's desk." The realization hit instantly. "She worked there," I said quietly. Helen nodded. "Which means whoever used that login was physically in the office," she said. "Yes," Daniel confirmed, "and the timestamp she asked." 2 nights after Ms. Whitaker's appointment," he replied. 2 nights. Not weeks. Not month. Immediate action. "Was there any record of authorized personnel being present?" Helen asked. "No," Daniel said. "According to our logs, the office was closed." Closed. But someone was inside. With access. With purpose. "And the footage from that night?" Helen asked. "It's gone," he said. "Same as the rest." Of course it was. Because whoever had done this had made sure there would be no trace. "Thank you, Mr. Reeves," Helen said. "This is very helpful. I should also say," he added. We both froze. What Helen asked. "I remember something else about that week," he said. My heart started pounding again. "What is it?" I asked. There was a slight hesitation. Then, your son came in alone the day after your appointment. Everything inside me went still. "Alone," I repeated. "Yes." "What did he want?" Helen asked. "He said he needed to confirm a detail about the documents," Daniel replied. A cold wave washed over me. "What kind of detail? I don't know," he said. He didn't go into specifics, but he was very insistent. Insistent. Of course he was. "And you let him?" I asked. "I didn't give him access to the documents," Daniel said quickly. But he stayed for a while, asked questions, looked around, at the office, at the systems, at the layout. "Planning. Again. Thank you," Helen said firmly. "We'll be in touch." She ended the call. Silence filled the room, but it wasn't the same silence as before. This one was heavier, clearer, more dangerous. "He went back," I said. "Yes," Helen replied. "He checked things, made sure everything was in place. Yes. And 2 nights later, the footage disappears." Helen nodded. "That's what it looks like." I stood up slowly, my hands trembling slightly. "This isn't just fraud," I said. "No," Helen agreed. "This is premeditated." The word felt sharp in my mouth, because it meant something specific, something intentional, something that couldn't be explained away. I walked to the window again, staring out at the street, people passing by, cars moving, life continuing like nothing had changed. But everything had. "He thought I wouldn't notice," I said quietly. Helen didn't respond. "He thought I'd believe him," I continued. Still no response. "He thought I'd doubt myself enough to let it go." I turned back to her, but I didn't. Helen met my gaze. "No," she said. "You didn't." And for the first time, I felt it. Not fear, not confusion, not even anger. Something else, something stronger. Resolve. Because now, this wasn't just about proving what happened. It was about showing him that I wasn't the woman he thought I was. Not confused, not forgetful, not easy to erase. And when I finally stood in front of him again, it wouldn't be as his mother. It would be as the one person who could take everything back. I chose the time carefully. Late afternoon. Not too early when emotions might still feel manageable. Not too late when things could turn unpredictable. Just enough daylight left to keep everything visible. Honest. Or at least as honest as anything between us had been lately. Helen didn't try to stop me this time. She only stood by the door as I picked up my keys. "Remember what we talked about?" she said. "No accusations," I replied. "No emotional reactions, just facts." She nodded. "And don't tell him everything at once." I paused my hand on the doorknob. Why? Because people reveal more when they think they still have control, she said. I took a breath. "All right. And Lance?" I turned back. "If you feel it shifting, if you feel yourself losing ground, you leave." I held her gaze for a moment, then nodded. "I will." But deep down, I already knew. I wasn't planning to lose ground again. The drive back to the house felt different this time. Not uncertain, not hesitant, focused. Every street I passed, every familiar corner, it all felt like a path leading to something inevitable. The truth. I pulled into the driveway and sat there for a moment looking at the house. My house. The same front porch. The same windows. The same door I had walked through thousands of times. But now, it felt like a place I had to reclaim. I stepped out of the car and walked up to the door, unlocking it with steady hands. Inside the house was quiet. too quiet. "Ethan?" I called. A moment later, footsteps. He appeared from the living room, his expression shifting almost instantly when he saw me. "Mom," he said, "where have you been?" Inside the house was quiet. Too quiet. "Ethan," I called. A moment later, footsteps. He appeared from the living room, his expression shifting almost instantly when he saw me. "Mom," he said, "where have you been?" Concern. Carefully placed. Measured. I recognized it now. "I've been thinking," I said. He studied me for a second longer. "About what?" "About everything," I replied, stepping inside and closing the door behind me. Vanessa appeared a moment later, standing slightly behind him, always just behind, watching, calculating. "Lance," she said. We were starting to worry. I almost smiled at that. Almost. "I'm sure you were," I said calmly. Ethan's brow furrowed slightly. "What does that mean?" I walked past them into the living room, placing my purse on the table. "It means," I said, turning to face them, "that I've been asking questions." A flicker of something crossed Ethan's face. Too fast for someone who wasn't paying attention, but I was. "What kind of questions?" he asked. "The kind that lead to answers," I said. Silence. Tension. The air between us tightened. Vanessa crossed her arms slightly. "Lance, if this is about the documents again?" "It is," I said, cutting her off. Ethan stepped forward slightly. "Mom, we already talked about that," he said. "You signed them. Everything was done properly." I nodded slowly. "That's what you said, and it's true," he replied. I held his gaze. "No," I said quietly. "It's not." The room went still. Vanessa's posture stiffened. Ethan didn't move. "What are you talking about?" he asked. I took a step closer. "I went to see Daniel Reeves," I said. "That did it. Just a flicker. Just a fraction of a second. But I saw it. The shift." What Ethan said, his voice tighter now. "Why would you do that?" "Because I wanted to understand what happened," I replied. "You already know what happened," he said quickly. "You signed. You answered for me," I said. Silence slammed into the room. Vanessa's eyes flicked toward Ethan. Ethan's jaw tightened. "That's not true," he said. "It is," I replied calmly. "He remembers." That landed. I watched it land. Watched the way his shoulders shifted just slightly. Watched the way his eyes sharpened, recalculating. "What exactly did he say?" Vanessa asked, stepping in now. I didn't look at her. Not yet. "He said I was quiet," I said, uncomfortable, not fully present. Ethan let out a small laugh. "Mom, that doesn't mean anything." "You were nervous," he said. "You answered for me," I repeated. The laughter stopped. Completely. Vanessa's arms tightened across her chest, and she said, "That's not illegal." I turned to her slowly. "No," I said, "but it's not consent either." Her lips pressed together. Ethan stepped forward again. "Mom, you're twisting this," he said. "You agreed to everything. I didn't understand everything," I said. "Yes, you did." "No," I repeated. The word hung there, firm, unmovable. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Ethan exhaled sharply. "Okay," he said. "Let's say you were confused. That doesn't change anything. The documents are still valid." I tilted my head slightly. "Are they?" His eyes narrowed. "What do you mean?" I held his gaze. Because I also looked into the property records. I said, that hit harder. I saw it. This time, it wasn't subtle. What records? He asked. The lien, I said. Silence. Heavy. Immediate. Vanessa's head turned toward him. What lien? She asked. Ethan didn't answer her. His eyes stayed locked on mine. You went digging, he said quietly. Yes, I replied. You shouldn't have done that. The words slipped out before he could stop them, and the moment they did, everything changed. I felt it. The shift. The crack. The truth slipping through. Why not? I asked. His jaw tightened. Because you don't understand what you're looking at, he said. I took another step closer. Then explain it to me, I said. He didn't. He couldn't, because we both knew there was nothing he could say that would make this look right. You used the house, I said, as collateral. That's not. It is, I cut in. Vanessa's voice cut through the tension. Ethan, what is she talking about? He didn't look at her, not immediately. And that hesitation, that was all she needed. You told me everything was clean, she said, her voice tightening. It is, he snapped. Then why didn't you tell me? It is, he snapped. Then why didn't you tell me about this? He turned toward her now, frustration flashing across his face. Because it didn't matter. It does now, she said. The tension between them cracked open just enough for me to see what had been hidden underneath. This wasn't just my fight. Not anymore. You needed my signature, I said quietly. Ethan turned back to me. Yes, he said. Finally, the truth. And when I didn't give it to you, he didn't answer, but he didn't deny it either. And that silence said everything. The silence after Ethan stopped speaking felt heavier than anything he could have said. Because it wasn't just silence, it was surrender. Not fully, not openly, but enough. Enough for me to see what had been hiding behind his carefully constructed words all this time. Vanessa was the first to break. Ethan, she said, her voice sharp now, stripped of its usual control. What is she talking about? He didn't answer immediately. His eyes stayed on me, still calculating, still trying to decide how much of the truth he could afford to give. That's not how it looks, he said finally. I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was exactly what I expected. Then tell me how it looks, I said. He exhaled slowly, running a hand through his hair. It was temporary, he said. A financial decision, something I needed to do to stabilize things. By using my house, I asked. It was going to benefit all of us, he replied quickly. All of us, I repeated. Vanessa stepped forward now, her focus shifting fully to him. What does that mean? She demanded. Ethan turned toward her, frustration flickering again. It means I had a plan, he said. A plan you didn't tell me about, she shot back. I didn't want to complicate things. Her laugh was short and bitter. You mean you didn't want me asking questions? That landed. I could see it in the way his jaw tightened, and suddenly I wasn't the only one he was losing control over. Vanessa, this isn't the time. No, she cut in. This is exactly the time. I stepped back slightly, watching, because this was something I hadn't expected. Cracks between them, real ones. You told me everything was legal, she continued. And everything was clean. It is legal. I stepped back slightly, watching. Because this was something I hadn't expected. cracks between them. Real ones. You told me everything was legal, she continued. That everything was clean. It is legal, he insisted. Then why didn't you tell me about the lien, she asked. He didn't answer, and that silence, it spoke louder than anything else. I felt something shift again, because now it wasn't just about what he had done to me. It was about what he had hidden from everyone, including her. You needed control of the house, I said quietly. Ethan turned back to me. Yes, he said again, more firmly this time. No hesitation. And the notary, I asked. The appointment. The answers you gave for me. His eyes hardened slightly. That was just making sure things moved forward, he said. My chest tightened. You mean making sure I didn't stop you? He didn't deny it. Mom, you weren't going to understand the situation, he said. You would have slowed everything down. So you decided for me, I said. Yes, he snapped. The word echoed in the room, raw, unfiltered, and there it was, the truth he had been holding back, not hidden anymore, not softened, just there. Vanessa stepped back slightly, shaking her head. You went behind both of us, she said. I did what I had to do, he replied. At whose expense, she demanded. He didn't answer, because the answer was obvious, mine. I felt it settle in my chest, not like a wound anymore, but like something solid, something clear. You planned this, I said. He didn't respond. You went to the office before the appointment, I continued. You talked to Daniel. You made sure everything was ready. His eyes flickered again. How do you know that? He asked. I know, I said simply. He stared at me, and for the first time, I saw something new in his expression. Not control, not confidence, uncertainty. And the footage I added, that hit harder. What about it? He asked too quickly. It's gone, I said. Delete it. He said nothing. You went back after the appointment? I continued. 2 nights later. His jaw tightened again. You don't know that, he said. I held his gaze. Yes, I said. I do. Silence. Thick. Heavy. Unavoidable. Vanessa looked between us, her voice quieter now, but sharper than ever. Ethan, did you delete it? He didn't answer. Did you? She repeated. His silence stretched just a second too long, and that was all she needed. Oh my God, she whispered. I felt it too. Not shock, not anymore, just confirmation. Because this wasn't about proving something now. It was about watching him realize that everything was already exposed. You thought I wouldn't question it, I said. I thought you'd trust me, he shot back. I did, I replied. The words came out softer than I expected, but they hit harder than anything else I had said, because that was the part he hadn't accounted for. Not the law, not the documents, not the evidence, the trust. The thing he had broken before anything else. I trusted you, I said again. He looked away, just for a second, but it was enough. I raised you, I continued. I gave you everything I could, and when you needed something from me, I paused, letting the weight of it settle. You didn't ask, I finished. You took. The room went completely still. Vanessa didn't speak. Ethan didn't respond. And for a moment, it felt like everything had stopped. Then he exhaled sharply. You don't understand what was at stake, he said. Then explain it, I replied. He hesitated, and there it was again. That pause, that gap, the place where the truth lived. "What were you trying to fix?" I asked. He shook his head. "You wouldn't get it. Try me." Another silence, longer this time, more fragile. "And then I was in trouble," he said. The words were quiet, but they changed everything. "What kind of trouble?" Vanessa asked immediately. He didn't look at her. "Financial," he said. "How much?" I asked. He hesitated again. "Enough," he said. "That's not an answer," I replied. His hands clenched at his sides. "I had investments that didn't work out," he said. "Loans I couldn't cover. And you thought the solution was to take mine?" I asked. "I thought I could fix it before it became a problem," he snapped. "It already was a problem," Vanessa said sharply. "For me," he shot back. "And now for all of us," she replied. I watched them. Watched the tension unravel between them. Because this wasn't just a secret anymore. It was a collapse. And if I hadn't found out, I asked. He didn't answer. "You would have lost the house," Vanessa said quietly. The words hung in the air. Heavy. Final. I felt them settle deep in my chest. Because that was it. That was the truth he hadn't wanted to say. The risk he had been willing to take. Not just money. Not just paperwork. Everything. My home. My security. My life. All of it. Placed on the line without my knowledge. Without my consent. Without my voice. And standing there looking at him now, I realized something. This wasn't just about what he had done. It was about what he believed. That I wouldn't fight back. That I wouldn't understand. That I wouldn't see through it. But he was wrong. And now, he knew it. I was in trouble. The words didn't just hang in the air. They settled. Heavy. Unavoidable. But instead of sympathy, that I wouldn't understand. That I wouldn't see through it. But he was wrong. And now, he knew it. I was in trouble. The words didn't just hang in the air. They settled. Heavy. Unavoidable. But instead of sympathy, instead of confusion, what I felt was something else entirely. Clarity. "You were in trouble," I repeated slowly. "So, you decided to put me in trouble too?" Ethan's jaw tightened. "That's not what I did." "It is exactly what you did," Vanessa snapped before I could respond. He turned to her, irritation flashing again. "You don't understand how serious it was," he said. "Then explain it." "It is exactly what you did," Vanessa snapped before I could respond. He turned to her, irritation flashing again. "You don't understand how serious it was," he said. "Then explain it," she shot back. "Because right now, it looks like you risked everything for yourself." Silence. He looked between us. Two people, two different kinds of truth staring back at him. And for the first time, he didn't seem sure which one he could still control. "I didn't have another option," he said finally. I stepped closer. "You always had another option," I said quietly. His eyes flicked to mine. "No," he said, "not one that worked. You could have asked me. I knew what you would say. You didn't give me the chance." That landed, harder than anything else, because it wasn't just about money, or documents, or legal lines. It was about choice. The one thing he had taken from me. "You made that decision for me," I continued, "just like you did at the notary office." "I was trying to fix it," he insisted. "At what cost?" I asked. He didn't answer, because he already knew. Vanessa took a step back, her voice quieter now but colder. "How much?" she asked again. Ethan closed his eyes briefly, then opened them. 300,000, he said. The number hit the room like a shockwave. Vanessa actually staggered back a step. 3. She stopped herself, pressing a hand to her mouth. Ethan, what did you do? I invested in a development project, he said. It was supposed to double within a year. And it didn't, I said. No, he replied. What happened? It collapsed, he said. The developer pulled out. The funding disappeared, and I was left holding the loan. And instead of facing it, Vanessa said slowly, you dragged her into it. I was going to fix it, he repeated. How? I asked. He hesitated again. That same hesitation. That same space where the truth lived. By refinancing, he said. By using the house to stabilize everything, then selling before the loan matured. My chest tightened. You were going to sell my house. It wouldn't have come to that, he said quickly. I had buyers lined up for my home I cut in. Yes, he said louder now. But you would have been taken care of. I wasn't going to leave you with nothing. I stared at him, because somehow that made it worse. You weren't going to leave me with nothing, I repeated. I was going to protect you, he said. The words hung there, twisted, wrong. You don't protect someone by taking their home without their permission, I said quietly. I was trying to protect myself too, he snapped. And there it was again. The truth, not dressed up, not softened, just raw. Him, his fear, his choices. Vanessa shook her head slowly. This is insane, she said. You risked everything for a deal that already failed. I thought I could recover it, he said. You thought wrong. The silence that followed wasn't just tension anymore. It was something else. Consequences. Finally catching up. I took a slow breath. Do you understand what you did? I asked. He didn't answer. You didn't just lie to me, I continued. You didn't just manipulate a situation. I stepped closer. You erased me from my own decisions. His eyes flickered again. That's not. It is, I said firmly. And this time, he didn't argue, because there was nothing left to argue, only what remained, the damage. Vanessa let out a long breath, her voice breaking slightly. We could lose everything she said. Ethan didn't respond. We could lose the house, she continued. We could be liable for fraud. Do you understand that? I'm handling it, he said. No, you're not, she replied sharply. You're hiding it. I watched them both. Watched the distance grow between them. Because this wasn't just about me anymore. It was about everything he had built on top of a lie, and how quickly it was falling apart. There's more, I said quietly. They both turned to me. What do you mean? Ethan asked. I know about the office, I said. The login. The footage. His face went still. Completely still. You went back? I continued. You accessed the system. I didn't, I said, cutting him off. The word came out sharper than anything before. Stronger. Because now I wasn't asking. I was telling. I know, I said. His shoulders dropped slightly. Just a fraction. But enough. It was already done, he said quietly. The paperwork was in place. I just needed to make sure nothing could interfere. My chest tightened. You erased it, I said. Yes. The word was almost a whisper. but it echoed louder than anything else. Vanessa stared at him. "You deleted evidence," she asked. He didn't answer. "You deleted evidence," she repeated, her voice rising. "I was protecting us," he said. "No," she said, shaking her head. "You were protecting yourself." Silence. Again. But this time, it wasn't uncertain. It was final, because there was nothing left to hide, nothing left to soften, nothing left to explain away. I looked at him, really looked at him, and for the first time, I didn't see my son. I saw a man who had made a series of choices, one after another, each one pushing him further away from the person I thought I knew. "I'm going to fix this," he said. I didn't respond. "I'll unwind the loan," he continued. "I'll talk to the bank. It's not that simple," I said. He stopped. "Why not?" "Because it's not just about the loan anymore," I replied. His expression shifted. "What do you mean?" I held his gaze. "It's about what you did to get it." And that was the part he still didn't fully understand. Because money could be repaid, loans could be renegotiated, properties could be transferred back. But what he had broken, what he had crossed, that didn't reset. That didn't disappear. That didn't get erased like a piece of footage. It stayed, permanent. And this time, I said quietly, "You don't get to decide how it ends." For a long moment after I said it, no one spoke. Not Ethan, not Vanessa, not even me, because something had shifted in the room, something deeper than anger, deeper than betrayal. It was final. The illusion was gone. And it was final. The illusion was gone. Indeed, now there was nothing left to hide behind. "I'm calling Helen," I said quietly. Ethan's head snapped up. "No." The word came out sharp. "I mediate, reflexive." I met his gaze. Yes, now there was nothing left to hide behind. "I'm calling Helen," I said quietly. Ethan's head snapped up. "No." The word came out sharp. "Immediate, reflexive." I met his gaze. "Yes. Mom, you don't need to do that," he said quickly, stepping forward. "We can handle this here, as a family." The word almost made me flinch. "Family. That stopped being an option when you stopped treating me like part of it," I replied. His jaw tightened again. "You're overreacting." I didn't raise my voice. I didn't move. I just looked at him. "No," I said. "I'm responding." Vanessa let out a slow breath, stepping to the side as if she needed distance from both of us. "She's right," she said. Ethan turned to her, disbelief flashing across his face. "Vanessa." "No," she cut in. "You lied. You manipulated legal documents. You deleted evidence." Her voice steadied with each word. "You don't get to decide how this is handled anymore." "No," she cut in. "You lied. You manipulated legal documents. You deleted evidence." Her voice steadied with each word. "You don't get to decide how this is handled anymore." Silence. The kind that settles when the last defense falls away. Ethan looked between us again. But this time, there was nothing left to calculate. Only consequences. "I can fix this," he said again, softer now. "I can unwind everything before it becomes a legal issue." I shook my head slowly. "It already is a legal issue," I said. He exhaled sharply. "You don't understand how fast this could spiral." "I do," I replied. That's why I'm not leaving it in your hands. That hit harder than anything else. Because this time, I wasn't asking him to explain. I wasn't waiting for him to decide. I was taking control. Something he had assumed I couldn't do. Something he had built this entire situation around. I'm calling Helen, I repeated. And this time, I picked up my phone. Helen arrived within 30 minutes. She didn't rush in, didn't raise her voice, didn't show anger. She simply stepped into the room, looked at Ethan, then at Vanessa, then at me, and nodded, like she already understood everything that had happened here. Mr. Whitaker, she said calmly. Ethan stiffened slightly. That's not necessary, he said. It is, she replied, because at this point, we're no longer having a family conversation. Her voice was steady, controlled. And I think you know that. Silence. Ethan didn't argue. Because he couldn't. Helen stepped further into the room, placing her bag on the table. I'm going to be very clear, and I think you know that. Silence. Ethan didn't argue, because he couldn't. Helen stepped further into the room, placing her bag on the table. I'm going to be very clear, she continued. Based on what Lance has shared and what you've confirmed, there are multiple legal issues here. Ethan's posture shifted, defensive now. What legal issues, he asked. Helen met his gaze. Potential fraud, she said. Undue influence during a notarized signing, and destruction of evidence. Each word landed like a weight. Vanessa closed her eyes briefly. Ethan didn't move. You're exaggerating, he said. I'm not exaggerating, he said. I'm not, Helen replied. She opened her bag, pulling out a folder. This is the lien documentation, she said, placing it on the table. Your name, the loan amount, the timeline. Ethan glanced at it, then looked away, and this Lynn replied. She opened her bag, pulling out a folder. This is the lien documentation, she said, placing it on the table. Your name, the loan amount, the timeline. Ethan glanced at it, then looked away. And this, she continued, pulling out another set of papers, is the statement from the notary office. My chest tightened slightly, because this was real now. Not just confrontation, not just words, evidence. Your behavior during that appointment raises serious questions, Helen said. Questions that could invalidate the entire transfer. Ethan swallowed. That's not enough, he said. There's no proof. Helen's expression didn't change. There will be, she said. The room went still, because that wasn't a threat. It was a promise. What are you going to do? Vanessa asked quietly. Helen turned to her. We're going to proceed formally, she said, which means documenting everything, filing the appropriate challenges, and if necessary. She paused, taking this to court. The word hung in the air. Court, final, public, unavoidable. Ethan let out a sharp breath. You don't want to do that, he said. I didn't want any of this, I replied. He looked at me, really looked at me, and for the first time, I saw it. Not anger, not control, fear, real fear. Because now he understood something he hadn't before. This wasn't something he could talk his way out of. This wasn't something he could adjust, or erase, or fix quietly behind the scenes. This was exposure. Mom, he said, his voice softer now, almost careful. Please, we can still handle this privately. I held his gaze. You had that chance, I said. He shook his head. I panicked, he said. I made a mistake. This wasn't one mistake, I replied. This was a series of decisions, each word steady, each word final, and every single one of them took something from me. Silence. Vanessa stepped further back, as if she didn't want to be caught between us anymore. Helen remained still, watching, letting it unfold. "What do you want?" Ethan asked. The question came out quieter this time. Less control, more desperation. I thought about it, not just in that moment, but everything leading up to it. The confusion, the doubt, the way he had looked at me like I was someone who couldn't understand her own life anymore. "I want the truth on record," I said. He blinked, and I want everything reversed, the way he had looked at me like I was someone who couldn't understand her own life anymore. "I want the truth on record," I said. He blinked, and I want everything reversed, I continued. "Legally, properly, without shortcuts." He nodded slowly, and the loan he asked. "That's your responsibility," I said. His jaw tightened again. "You're not going to help me?" I held his gaze. "You didn't ask me for help," I said. That landed hard, because it wasn't just an answer. It was the truth he had been avoiding from the beginning. Helen stepped forward slightly. "We'll be in contact with your representation," she said calmly. "From this point on, communication should go through legal channels." Ethan didn't respond. He just stood there, processing, realizing, and finally understanding. Because for the first time since this began, he wasn't in control anymore. And he knew it. The house felt different after Helen left. Quieter. Not the kind of quiet that brings peace. The kind that comes after something breaks. Vanessa had already gone upstairs without saying a word. Ethan remained in the living room, standing, not sitting, not moving. Like if he stayed still long enough, maybe everything would reset. Maybe this would all rewind. But it wouldn't. I knew that. And for the first time, so did he. I picked up my purse slowly, walking toward the door. "Where are you going?" he asked. His voice wasn't sharp anymore. It wasn't defensive. It was something else, something uncertain. "Back to Helen's," I said. He nodded faintly, like he had expected that answer. "Mom." I stopped, not turning yet, because I wasn't sure I wanted to see his face again right now. "I didn't mean for it to go this far," he said. I closed my eyes briefly, and when I turned back, I made sure my voice was steady. "You didn't mean to get caught," I said. The words landed hard. He flinched slightly. "Just enough." "That's not fair," he said. "No," I replied. "What you did wasn't fair." Silence. Again. But this time, it wasn't tense. It was empty, because there was nothing left to argue. "I was going to fix it," he said again, almost quietly now. I shook my head. "You keep saying that," I said, "but every step you took made it worse." He looked down, and for a moment, he didn't have anything to say. No justification, no explanation, just the weight of it. "I didn't think you'd fight me," he admitted. That stopped me. Not because it hurt, but because it explained everything. I studied him carefully. "You didn't think I would understand," I said. He nodded faintly. "And you didn't think I would question you." Another nod. "And you didn't think I would go looking for the truth." This time, he didn't respond, because that was the one that mattered most. "You thought I was what I asked." His voice was barely above a whisper. Confused. The words sat between us, heavy, ugly, real. And for the first time, I didn't feel anger when I heard it. I felt something else. Clarity. Because that was the foundation of everything he had done. Not just desperation, not just fear. Assumption that I wasn't capable, that I wouldn't see, that I couldn't fight back. You built everything on that? I said quietly. He looked up at me, and I saw it again. That same thing from before, fear, because now he understood what that assumption had cost him. I was wrong, he said. Yes, I replied. No hesitation, no softness, just truth. He swallowed. What happens now? He asked. I held his gaze for a long moment, then answered honestly. Now you deal with what you created. His shoulders dropped slightly. And us? He asked. The question hung there, fragile, because this wasn't about legal consequences. This was about something deeper, something that didn't have paperwork, or timelines, or negotiations. I thought about everything, every conversation, every look, every moment where I had doubted myself instead of doubting him. And I realized something. There wasn't a quick answer for that. There is no us right now. Where for that? There is no us right now, I said. The words came out steady, but they cut deeper than anything else. He nodded slowly, like he already knew. I understand, he said, and maybe, for the first time, he actually did. The next few days moved fast, but not in the way I expected. There were no dramatic confrontations, no shouting matches, no confrontations, no shouting matches, no desperate apologies, just process. Helen filed the initial legal challenge. The notary submitted a formal statement. The lien was flagged. Everything that had been hidden started surfacing, piece by piece, and with every step desperate apologies. Just process. Helen filed the initial legal challenge. The notary submitted a formal statement. The lien was flagged. Everything that had been hidden started surfacing, piece by piece, and with every step, the truth became harder to ignore. Ethan hired a lawyer. Vanessa stayed distant. The house, my house, remained in limbo. But something else began to change too. Inside me. Because for so long, this had felt like something happening to me. Something I was trying to catch up to. Understand. Survive. But now, it felt different. Now I was the one moving forward, not reacting, not questioning, deciding. I spent most of my time at Helen's, not because I had nowhere else to go, but because it gave me space. Space to think, to breathe, to remember who I was before all of this started. And slowly, that person came back. Not all at once, not perfectly, but enough. Enough to stand without second-guessing every thought. Enough to trust myself again. One afternoon, Helen walked into the room with a small stack of papers. "It's moving faster than expected," she said. I looked up. "What does that mean?" "It means the case is strong," she replied. "Stronger than they anticipated." "They?" I asked. "Ethan's legal team," she said. I nodded slowly. "And the house?" She smiled slightly. "It's being protected," she said. "No sale, no transfer, no action without your authorization." Relief settled in my chest. Quiet, but real. "And the loan?" I asked. "That's still his problem," she said. "And it's getting more complicated for him." I didn't feel satisfaction hearing that. Just balance. Because for the first time, The consequences were landing where they belonged. Not on me, on him. A week later, I went back to the house. Not to confront, not to argue, just to stand in it again. Alone. The door opened the same way. The light came through the windows the same way. Everything looked exactly as it had before. But it didn't feel the same. Because I wasn't the same. I walked slowly through each room, touching things, remembering. Not what had been taken, but what had always been mine. And as I stood in the center of the living room, I realized something. This wasn't just about reclaiming a house. It was about reclaiming my voice, my judgment, my place. Everything that had been quietly taken the moment someone decided I wasn't capable anymore. I wasn't confused. I wasn't lost. And I wasn't invisible. And now, no one could pretend otherwise. The court date came faster than I expected, not because the process was rushed, but because for the first time in weeks, everything moved in one direction. Forward. No more waiting. No more piecing things together. No more wondering what was true and what wasn't. Just facts. Helen met me outside the courthouse that morning. She didn't say much when she saw me, just gave a small nod. "You ready?" she asked. I took a breath. Yes. And I meant it. Not because I wasn't nervous. I was. But because I wasn't unsure anymore, and that made all the difference. Inside, everything felt formal, controlled, ordered. Nothing like the chaos that had brought us here. Ethan was already there when we entered, sitting with his lawyer. Vanessa sat a few seats away from him, not beside him, not even close. That distance said everything. He looked up when he saw me. Our eyes met for a brief moment. And in that moment, I saw it. Not anger, not resistance, something quieter, regret. But it didn't change anything, because regret didn't undo what had been done. Helen guided me to my seat. "Stay focused," she said quietly. "Answer only what you're asked. Don't let emotions lead." I nodded, because I understood now. This wasn't about emotion. This was about truth. The hearing itself wasn't dramatic. There were no shouting matches, no sudden revelations. Just evidence, presented clearly, carefully, step by step. The notary's statement, the access logs, the timeline, the lien. Every piece placed exactly where it needed to be. And slowly, a picture formed. Not of confusion, not of misunderstanding, but of intent. The judge listened without interruption, taking notes, watching, waiting. And when it was Ethan's turn, everything shifted. His lawyer spoke first, tried to frame it as a mistake, a misjudgment, a financial decision made under pressure. But it didn't hold, because the evidence didn't support that version. Not anymore. Then Ethan spoke, and for the first time since all of this began, he didn't try to control the narrative. He didn't deny it. He didn't twist it. He just admitted it. "I made a series of bad decisions," he said. His voice was steady, but not confident. "Not anymore. I thought I could fix it before anyone got hurt." A pause. But I was wrong. The words hung there. Simple. Direct. Too late. Because this wasn't about whether he knew it now. It was about what he had done then, and that couldn't be undone. When it was my turn to speak, I didn't rush. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't try to prove anything. Because I didn't need to. I just told the truth. "I trust Tatum," I said. And in that moment, I didn't rush. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't try to prove anything. because I didn't need to. I just told the truth. I trusted him, I said. And in that moment, everything felt still. I trusted my son to tell me the truth, to respect my decisions, to see me as someone capable of making them. I paused, looking at the judge, then at Ethan. And instead, he decided for me. No anger, no accusation, just truth. I'm not here because I want to punish him, I continued. I'm here because I want my voice back. Silence, real silence. The kind that settles when something true has been said. And for the first time, I felt it. Not fear, not doubt, peace. Because no matter what happened next, I had already taken back the one thing that mattered most: myself. The ruling came later that day. The transfer was invalidated. The house was returned to my name. The lien was declared fraudulent, and the case was referred for further review. It wasn't loud, it wasn't dramatic, but it was final, and that was enough. I stood outside the courthouse afterward, the sunlight warm against my face. Helen stood beside me, her expression calm but satisfied. It's done, she said. I nodded slowly. Yes, I replied. Ethan walked out a few minutes later, alone. Vanessa didn't follow him. He stopped a few feet away from me. Not too close, not too far. I'm sorry, he said. The words were quiet, honest, but they didn't carry the same weight they might have before. Because apologies don't rebuild trust. They only acknowledge its absence. I know, I said. He nodded. And for a moment, it felt like he might say something else, but he didn't. He turned and walked away. And this time, I didn't stop him. Weeks passed, slowly, steadily. The house felt like mine again, not just legally, emotionally. Every room, every memory, everything that had been questioned restored. Vanessa moved out not long after. I heard through someone else that she had filed for separation. I didn't ask for details. I didn't need them. Some things resolve on their own. As for Ethan, we didn't speak. Not at first. Not for a long time. Because some distances need time before they can be crossed again. If they ever are. One afternoon, I sat on the porch. The same steps where this all began. The same place where I had first realized something was wrong. But everything felt different now. Lighter. Clearer. Stronger. Not because nothing had happened, but because I had made it through it. And as I sat there, watching the quiet street, the familiar rhythm of life moving forward, I realized something. This wasn't just about losing something and getting it back. It was about being seen, being heard, and refusing to disappear just because someone else decided you should. If you've ever had someone make you question your own reality, your own memory, your own worth, I want you to know this. You are not wrong for trusting yourself. Even when others don't, especially when others don't. Because your voice. If you've ever had someone make you question your own reality, your own memory, your own worth, I want you to know this. You are not wrong for trusting yourself. Even when others don't. Especially when others don't. Because your voice, your truth, your life, they belong to you, not to anyone else. And no matter how quietly someone tries to take that from you, you can take it back. I did, and so can you. If this story resonated with you, I'd really love to hear your thoughts. Have you ever been in a situation where someone tried to control your reality? Where are you watching from, and what time is it there right now? Don't forget to like and subscribe. If you believe stories like this deserve to be told, because sometimes the truth doesn't just set you free. It reminds you who you were all along. What this story truly reveals is not just the danger of betrayal, but the quiet power of self-trust. Sometimes the deepest wounds don't come from strangers. They come from the people we love most. The ones we never imagined would question our voice, override our choices, or rewrite our reality. And what makes it even more painful is not just what they do, but how easily they make us doubt ourselves in the process. But here's the truth. Confusion can be planted. Doubt can be whispered. Reality can be manipulated. But your inner voice, the part of you that feels when something is wrong, that part is real. And it deserves to be trusted. No matter your age, no matter what others say, you are not too old, too slow, or too confused to understand your own life. You have lived, experienced, and survived more than most people ever will. And that wisdom, it is not something anyone has the right to take from you. This story is a reminder that standing up for yourself doesn't always look loud or dramatic. Sometimes it looks like asking one more question. Sometimes it looks like refusing to sign. Sometimes it looks like walking away and choosing truth over comfort. And sometimes it looks like rebuilding your life from a place of clarity, even when it means facing painful truths about the people closest to you. But in the end, there is something incredibly powerful about reclaiming your voice. Because once you do, no one can ever silence you the same way again. If this story touched you in any way, I'd truly love to hear your thoughts. Have you ever been in a situation where someone made you question your own judgment or reality? How did you handle it? Share your experience in the comments. Your story might help someone else feel less alone. And if you believe in stories that empower, heal, and remind us of our strength, don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next one. Because sometimes the most important battles we fight are the ones that bring us back to ourselves.